The year was 1989 in a quiet little town of Maplewood, Ohio. The rain had been falling since morning, washing the streets clean, but leaving the air heavy with silence. Inside a small wooden house on Maple Street, a young couple, David and Emily Carter, sat by a broken window, counting coins. Emily whispered, "We're short again, David. $28 for the rent. That's all." David rubbed his tired eyes. His hands were rough from working 2 jobs, at the gas station during the day and at the factory at night. "I'll figure it out," he said softly. "I always do." In the crib beside them, a baby cried. Their little girl, Lily, only 6 months old, was sick again. The doctor said she needed medicine, but even that cost more than they had. Emily looked at her husband, eyes filled with tears. "How long can we live like this?" David forced a smile. "Until things get better. They always do." Outside, thunder rolled, as if the sky itself felt their pain. That night, David walked through the rain to the Maplewood diner, looking for extra work. The owner, Mr. Parker, was an old man with a kind heart, but a hard business. "I can't pay you much, but if you're willing to clean the kitchen after hours, it's yours." David nodded. He didn't care about pay, only survival. While David worked, Emily sat by Lily's crib, humming lullabies through tears. The power went out, and the small house filled with darkness. She pressed Lily close and whispered, "Daddy's coming soon, sweetheart. Just hold on." That was the night everything changed. The rain kept falling, and so did hope. The next morning, sunlight crept through the broken blinds of the Carter house. Emily woke to the sound of coughing, not hers, but Lily's. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell in pain, every breath a struggle. Emily rushed to the clinic downtown, wrapping Lily in a worn blanket. The nurse behind the counter didn't even look up. She said, "You need insurance, ma'am." Emily said, "Please, she's burning up." The nurse sighed. She said, "Without payment, the doctor can't see her. I'm sorry." Tears filled Emily's eyes. She looked down at Lily, pale, shaking, barely breathing, and whispered, "I'll find a way, baby, I promise." That afternoon, David returned home, soaked in sweat and oil from the factory. Emily told him what happened, and something inside him broke. He slammed his fist against the wall. He said, "They'd let a baby suffer because we're poor?" Emily grabbed his arm. She said, "David, please, we just need hope." But hope was expensive in Maplewood. David walked out again that night. No umbrella, no jacket, just pain and determination. He went back to the diner, begging Mr. Parker for an advance. Mr. Parker shook his head. "I'm sorry, son. I barely make ends meet myself." David's voice cracked. "She's my daughter. She's dying." The old man sighed deeply, then opened the cash drawer and handed him $50. He said, "Don't pay me back. Just take care of her." David ran home through the rain, clutching the wet bills in his hand like they were gold. But when he stepped into the house, everything went silent. Emily was sitting on the floor, holding Lily in her arms. The baby wasn't crying anymore. Only the rain made a sound, tapping on the window like tears from heaven. David dropped to his knees, his heart shattering. He said, "Emily." Emily said, "She's gone, David. She's gone." He pulled them both close, rocking back and forth in grief so heavy it could break a man's soul. Outside, the storm grew stronger, as if the world was mourning with them. That night, David buried Lily in the old churchyard behind Maple Street. No funeral, no flowers, no family. Just 2 broken parents, standing in the mud, watching the earth cover their baby. Emily whispered, "Why does God give us love only to take it away?" David had no answer. He only said, "Maybe so we learn how to survive when it's gone." The next morning, Emily stopped speaking altogether. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And slowly, the light inside her, the light that made her laugh, dream, and live, began to fade. Time moved differently after Lily's death. For David and Emily, the days no longer had names, only a repeating ache that began with sunrise and ended with sleepless nights. Emily sat by the window most days, staring at nothing. Her once bright eyes were dull now, her hands trembling when she tried to sew or cook. David would come home from the factory, covered in dust, and find her sitting in the same place he'd left her that morning. He'd say softly, "Emily, you should eat something." But she wouldn't answer. Sometimes she didn't even blink. The house that once echoed with baby laughter now held only the sound of silence, heavy, endless silence. At night, David lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the creaks of the house and the wind through the trees. He wondered if Lily's spirit lingered there, maybe in the laughter of the wind, maybe in the rhythm of the rain. One evening, after weeks of silence, Emily finally spoke. "I hear her sometimes, David, in the room." He turned to her, heart pounding. "Emily, that's just the wind." She shook her head slowly. "No," she says, "Mommy, don't cry. I can hear her voice." Tears burned his eyes, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Emily, Lily's gone." She looked at him then, not with anger, but with something worse. Emptiness. Then why does it hurt like she's still here? That night, Emily took Lily's blanket from the crib and held it. The winter that took Emily felt endless. After her funeral, David stopped speaking to almost everyone. The house on Maple Street became a ghost itself. Curtains drawn, door always locked, lights never on. People in town said, "That's where sadness lives." David started working nights at a repair shop outside the city. It didn't pay much, but it kept him from thinking. He slept in his truck sometimes, because the silence of the house was louder than any noise outside. Years passed. Maplewood grew, changed. New families moved in. Children played where his daughter once crawled. But David stayed frozen in time. Then, one rainy night, 30 miles away, David stopped on a bridge. The river below roared like the sound of 1,000 memories. He looked down at the water and whispered, "Maybe it's time." But before he could take another step, he heard crying, not from the river, but behind him. A young girl, maybe 15, sat against the railing, soaking wet, clutching a backpack. Her face was red from tears. David approached carefully. "Hey, you okay?" She looked up, startled. "Don't come closer." "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. "I was just about to make a stupid choice too." The girl stared at him, confused, but his voice was calm, steady. The kind of voice that carried pain and truth. "What's your name?" "Samantha," she whispered. She told him she'd run away from home. Her stepfather drank and shouted. Her mother didn't believe her anymore, and she had nowhere to go. David listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he said, "I lost my family too.
The morning after
long time
Samantha
ago,
came into his life,
and I thought ending
David
it was
woke
the
up
only
to the
way to
sound
stop."
of laughter. Soft, nervous, but real. It came from the kitchen. She had found his old coffee pot and was trying to make breakfast. The smell of burnt toast filled the house. "Sorry," she laughed when he walked in. "I think your toaster hates me." David smiled for the first time in years. It hates everyone. It's been doing that since '94. They shared that burnt toast like it was a feast. For the first time, the house didn't feel like a tomb. It felt alive. Over the next few weeks, they developed a quiet rhythm. Samantha cleaned the porch, painted the walls, and even planted flowers outside. David started fixing the roof, repairing old furniture, and keeping the windows open again. The house that once smelled like dust and loss now smelled of coffee, fresh paint, and hope. Sometimes, at night, they talked, not as father and daughter, but as two people who'd both lost too much. Samantha shared stories about her school, her dreams of becoming a nurse, her fear of being unwanted. David told her about Emily and Lily, not with tears this time, but with a soft pride in his voice. "You know," Samantha said one evening, "you sound like someone who still loves them more than life." "I do," David replied quietly, "but maybe love isn't meant to end. Maybe it just changes shape." She smiled, "Like it changed into you helping me." Those words stayed with him. That night, he looked at the family photo again, Emily holding baby Lily, and whispered, "You were right, Em. The heart never really runs out of love. It just waits for someone new to give it to." Months passed. Samantha started attending community college with help from a small scholarship. David worked part-time as a mechanic again, saving bit by bit to support her. Every morning, before she left for class, she'd shout, "Don't forget to eat something, old man." And he'd laugh, shouting back, "Don't forget to dream something, kid." But not every day was easy. Some nights, Samantha still woke up crying from nightmares of her stepfather shouting. David would sit by her side, saying softly, "You're safe now. You're home." In those moments, she felt something she hadn't in years. The warmth of being cared for, truly cared for. One cold evening, after dinner, she asked him, "David, can I call you something other than David?" He looked at her surprised. "Like what?" She smiled shyly. "Dad, maybe?" For a moment, the room went silent. David's eyes filled with tears. He couldn't speak. He just nodded. "Yeah," he whispered, "you can." That night, for the first time in a decade, David slept peacefully. Outside, the wind brushed softly through the trees, whispering a promise that the pain of the past had finally begun to fade, and the house on Maple Street finally sounded like home again. Years slipped by quietly, the way they do when life stops hurting and simply becomes life again. Samantha grew up into a strong, kind young woman. She graduated nursing school, always saying it was David's belief in her that gave her courage. David, older now, spent most mornings sitting on the porch with his coffee, watching the sunrise over Maple Street. The same sun that had once set on his darkest days. But now, every sunrise felt like a small miracle. One chilly autumn morning, Samantha came home waving an envelope. "Dad, look! I got the job! City Hospital, full-time nurse!" David smiled so wide his eyes crinkled. "I told you the world had a place waiting for you." They celebrated with pie and laughter, the kind that fills every empty space in a heart. That night, while Samantha slept, David sat alone by the window, the same one where Emily once stared into the rain. He whispered, "You'd be proud of her, Em. She's the kind of woman you always hoped Lily would become." He took a deep breath and smiled at the moon. "I think I'm finally ready." Winter came again. The same quiet snow that had once brought him pain now brought peace. One morning, Samantha walked into his room and found him sitting in his chair, a blanket over his lap, a soft smile on his face. But his coffee was cold. David had passed away in his sleep, peacefully. On the nightstand beside him was a letter, sealed neatly, addressed in his shaky handwriting. "To my daughter, Samantha." She opened it with trembling hands. Inside, the paper smelled faintly of coffee and old books. His words were simple but powerful. "My dear Samantha, when I met you that night by the bridge, I thought life was over. But you taught me something no one else could. that broken souls can still shine when they help another lost heart find its way. You gave me a reason to wake up, to fix the old house, to smile again. You became my second chance at being a father, and through you, I found my way back to love. So don't cry for me. I've already lived twice, once with Emily and Lily, and once with you. Promise me one thing, keep the house on Maple Street alive. Let it be a place where someone lost can always find a home. Love, Dad.